reincarnated. I was stargazing. Life goes on, I need all my babies. Woke up looking for the broccoli. High key, keep a horn on me, that could my seat. IP, ownership, the blueprint is by me.
So I was able to put together the bike in about an hour thanks to Luna Cycle's excellent assembly instruction video. The battery came in at 75% charged. It took about 2 hours to charge to 100%. It's time to full send it. So I put the bike in eco mode and immediately noticed that it was way too slow for me. Without hesitation, I changed to sport mode and everything felt so much better. I guess I'm never touching eco mode again. To my horror, when I squeezed the front brakes, nothing happened. The front brakes didn't work at all. I had to pull hard on the rear brake in order to stop, so that scared me a bit. However, after squeezing the front brake lever about 20 to 30 times, it finally started working. Now it's perfectly fine, so if you have a new MX5, make sure to test your brakes before you go crazy on the road. Then I noticed I had a speed cap at 20 miles per hour, so I immediately drove home and snipped the speed limiter wire. It's this brown loop on a connector which lives under the horn cover. All you need to do is to remove 2 screws, then pivot the horn cover on the last screw to the side to reveal the connectors. It's the only brown wire on these modules. Don't cut anything else or you're gonna have a bad day. I'm giving away a $1,000 electric skateboard, a $500 scooter, and a $200 full face helmet. To enter, just be a subscriber and comment on any of my videos released between September and November of 2024, such as this one. May the odds ever be in your favor. I went right back out after the snip and the bike instantly felt unshackled. I did a few laps in a parking lot and quickly outgrew the sports mode and moved to hyper mode. Hyper is where it's at. It's a lot of power in your hands. It's only in hyper mode that I feel the bike understands what I want to do and responds exactly the way I want it to. In sports mode, I had to constantly look down at the bike because it wasn't able to keep up with what I wanted to do, even though I wasn't even trying anything demanding. Now, even though this is my first electric dirt bike, I used to ride middleweight sport bikes over a decade and a half ago. I know, I am super ancient. Surprisingly, everything about riding a bike came back to me pretty fast. One thing that threw me off a bit is the turning. Normally on a sport bike, the front of the wheel leads the rest of the bike, whereas on the MX5, it feels as if the bike is pivoting off the center of the bike, and the front wheel is just following that pivot. Nevertheless, the MX5 is super responsive and agile when turning. Even to the point, if you are not careful, you could actually oversteer and throw yourself off the bike. At higher speeds, the MX5 feels very stable. Let me repeat that. It is very surprisingly stable despite it being agile at lower speeds. I was also expecting the handlebars to be pretty wobbly at higher speeds, but it was just rock solidly stable, even when I hit 45 miles per hour on bumpy roads. I think I could have gone faster, but it was my first day. I wanted to chill a bit and not kill myself until I get to know the bike better. But yes, I've always imagined going fast on these e-motos would be scary, but it turns out to be a smooth, stable, and confidence-inducing ride. The acceleration curve is very beginner-friendly. Even in hyper mode, the throttle doesn't really take off until you turn it a lot to fully harness its power. This is not to say the throttle has a lot of dead space either. The bike still moves and responds to the tiniest throttle engagement, but in the most gentle way possible, so you can still move with grace in tight spaces without looking like someone who's spazzing out. While I've not yet tested the suspensions in off-road conditions, I can tell you they work really well on crappy suburban roads. Utahns jokingly say our state tree is a traffic cone. Even in this type of condition, I could barely feel any bumps or unevenness that previously would have scared the crap out of me on my electric skateboard or electric scooters. The suspension really adds that premium level comfort for the rider to go long distances on crappy roads. The MX5 seating position is pretty high up there. I'm 5'10" or 177 centimeters tall, and my legs hit the ground just right. I think you might have a harder time putting your feet down if you are under 165 centimeters. The stock seat isn't the most comfortable. My butt started hurting before I even made it out of the parking lot. However, to its credit, the seat does provide a good grip if you're looking to stay firmly planted on the bike without sliding around. I didn't fully understand why so many people wanted to upgrade their seats until now. In fact, upgrading to a more comfortable seat is probably going to be the first modification I make on this bike. For a quiet electric bike, the MX5 actually has a surprisingly good sound. Most of the noise comes from the chains, with a bit more from the motor. The sound is quite satisfying, especially during acceleration. I've had other electric vehicles that sounded like chainsaws, which can get pretty annoying. On the flip side, I've also had vehicles that produce zero noise, which can be a bit dull. I appreciate that the MX5 delivers those heart-racing acceleration sounds when you want them, but stays quiet and low-key when you're just cruising. The left rear brake lever out of the box is working, but it's super spongy. Seems like this is a common issue, as Lunacycle had already put out a video on how to address the problem. Just follow the instructions to adjust the levers. The brakes are very well tuned, neither jerky nor underpowered. The large brake pads engage smoothly without making any strange noises. They offer plenty of braking force, with the levers pressed just past 50% of the pull. In my opinion, the weakest link might actually be the tires. The factory stock tires seem more likely to lose traction before you'd encounter any issues with the brakes themselves. Oh yeah, there are also Regen Brakes. That pretty much sums up my experience with regenerative braking on the MX5. I keep forgetting it's even there. The placement is such that I just don't think to use it. I'm so used to tapping the front brake lever to slow down that retraining my brain to use a separate thumb lever feels like it's going to take some real effort. The bike is still really heavy even with the battery removed. I wouldn't recommend trying to push or carry it up the stairs unless you've got the build of Arnold. When it's moving though, it feels incredibly light, almost like it's made out of paper, thanks to how nimble and quick it is. But the moment it's stationary, it feels like a solid block of metal. The contrast between how it handles while riding and how heavy it feels when you're trying to move it by hand is pretty striking. Overall, I'm extremely happy with the new MX5 Pro. The Hyper mode feels just right for me, as I quickly outgrew both Sport and Eco modes. If I had a slower bike like the stock MX4, I'd probably get bored pretty quickly. I also really enjoyed the strong braking power and the satisfying acceleration in Hyper mode. On top of that, Lunacycle offers some of the best customer support in the industry. They've definitely earned my trust as a repeat customer. I'll dive into that more later.
Reincarnated, I was stargazing. Life goes on, I need all my babies. Woke up looking for the broccoli. High key, keep a horn on me, that could my seat. IP, ownership, the blueprint is by me.